Well, hello, everybody. I am not Trevor.
And I am Trevor, and this is
Bill and Trevor's
Excellent
Adventure.
Adventure.
Caught you by surprise, didn't I?
That's true. I was surprised. I wasn't ready for that one.
So, before we go any further, let's try to recap the narrative in John so far.
Hmm.
We started off looking at how he characterized Jesus as something literally out of this world and talked about the idea of Jesus being light who came into the world. And then he introduces this idea of John the Baptizer, who was a witness to the light. So we did a couple of doglegs talking about what does that mean to be a witness and how is John, either one of them, a witness. We looked at Jesus' first interaction with the very first disciples and saw in a very short period of time how he really impacted them.
Hmm.
We saw some of Jesus' character revealed in the wedding in Cana at Galilee. Not just that he could turn water into wine, but the quality of the wine he made when the only person who could really appreciate the difference was somebody who didn't know that he did it.
Yeah.
And that tells us some things. And how at the end of that story, it says that the disciples put their faith in him, which strikes me as kind of odd because they were already declaring him to be the Messiah the previous chapter.
Yeah.
But that's really setting the stage because next we talk about Jesus going to cleanse the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that I've been pondering that a lot because on the one hand, in John's narrative, he's only done one miracle so far.
Mm-hmm.
But in John chapter 2, there's reference to him doing so many that the people in Jerusalem, which is on the other end of the country, having faith in it. And I know from the other Gospels that Jesus cleansed the temple at the end of his ministry. So I'm always assuming that John's just presenting events out of sequence. But what we're going to talk about today is going to cast that idea into thoughts. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Yeah.
We saw Jesus' conversation with Nicodemus, which is a big watershed point in the narrative, because here John the Apostle is presenting his major thesis of his narrative, which he's going to really elaborate on for the rest of the book. And that thesis statement is that the reason people don't come to the light is not because they lack the evidence.
Yeah.
It is because they lack the will to change.
Yeah.
And it's highlighted by how many people saw what Jesus was doing and said, well, duh, he's got to be something special.
Yeah.
But Nicodemus, who has a whole lot vested in his career, comes to Jesus at night to talk about that. And Jesus goes straight to the point and tells Nicodemus, you need to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And then Jesus presents that verdict that, Christianity following Jesus is not going to be a bland intellectual and academic exercise. It's going to call for decisions and it's going to call for judgment.
Yeah. And I always wonder how Nicodemus thought of what he thought in his perspective being, one, he was old at this time, and he's also a scholar in the Jewish community and on the law. And he thinks, at this point, he's probably saying, man, I know a lot about the law. I've even discerned a lot of things for different people. And now here comes Jesus saying, hey, man, you need to restart. You
Well,
got it
that,
all wrong.
and that's not unlike the situation of most people
Yeah, exactly.
who have to come to Jesus, because we come in with a certain amount of preconceptions and biases and prejudices and assumptions, whether you come to Jesus already religious or even if you come to Jesus with an atheistic background. Either way, coming to Jesus as he's presented in the Bible is going to challenge all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody has to come in willing to start over.
Yeah, everybody. Even we did. So
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah. So we'll pick up here in John chapter 3, starting in on verse 22. And I just want to emphasize that the way verse 22 starts is,
After this.
so, after what?
Oh, I guess this is right after he's done speaking with Nicodemus.
Well, that's what you would think, except the words after this are,
After this, Jesus and his disciples went out into the Judean countryside, where he spent some time with them and baptized.
But wait, that was not during Passion Week.
No, it was not.
So I pondered this.
Mhm.
And of course, my reflex action when I see something that doesn't quite make sense to me in the English,
You got to look in the Greek.
I go to my favorite app and I find that, in English, the phrase after this has a very, very specific meaning. Chronologically, this event took place after that event. That's not what the Greek word meant.
Mm. Mm.
The Greek word was meta.
Okay.
And that word is more of a generic preposition, meaning about or relating to. And so
Mm.
maybe John is saying, and here's another incident that is related to what I just told you. That would make more sense to me if the cleansing of the temple described in chapter 2 really is the same incident.
Yeah. Yeah.
On the other hand, I also think back, in one of the other gospels, it talks about how Jesus was 12 years old and he's sitting there talking with the people who are much older than him and asking questions. Everybody's amazed at his understanding. And I wonder, being the Son of the Almighty, did he burn every time he went into the temple and saw that going on? Did he ever decide, cotton picking, when I start my ministry, this is the first thing I'm going to do?
Yeah. Honestly,
I don't know.
you never know. Yeah.
I don't know. But I just put it out there. All right,
Mhm.
go ahead and please continue reading.
Okay. Now John also was baptizing at Aenon near Salem, because there was plenty of water and people were coming and being baptized. This was before John was put in prison. An argument developed between some of John's disciples and a certain Jew over the matter of ceremonial washing.
I need to pause you here again.
Mm.
Sorry. But here it says this was before John had been put in prison.
Mm-hmm.
But we know that John was put in prison after about the first year and a half of Jesus' ministry. And the other gospels talk about John being in prison, sending people to Jesus. So clearly, this is early in Jesus' ministry.
Yeah.
So, my latest guesses at this point is that it's not really after this chronologically. I'm going to tell you another story and it connects to what I just told you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. An argument developed between some of John's disciples and a certain Jew over the matter of ceremonial washing. They came to John and said to him, "Rabbi, that man who was with you on the other side of the Jordan, the one you testified about, look, he is baptizing and everyone is going to him." To this John replied, "A person can receive only what is given them from heaven. You yourself can testify that I said, I am not the Messiah, but I am sent ahead of him. The bride belongs to the bridegroom. The friend who attends the bridegroom waits and listens for him, and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. That joy is mine, and it is now complete. He must become greater, I must become less. The one who comes from above is above all. The one who is from the earth belongs to the earth, and speaks as one from the earth. The one who comes from heaven is above all. He testifies to what he has seen and heard, but no one accepts his testimony. Whoever has accepted it has certified that God is truthful. For the one whom God has sent speaks the words of God, for God gives the Spirit without limit. The Father loves the Son and has placed everything in his hands. Whoever believes in the Son has eternal life, but whoever rejects the Son will not see life, for God's wrath remains on them.
So before we get into your comments and questions, I just have to make a remark. This is my strange sense of humor. Now, a discussion arose between some of John's disciples and a certain Jew over purification.
Hmm.
A Jew, huh? I wonder who that could have been. Because Because, in the other gospels, John and his brother James, sometimes called the sons of thunder.
Yep.
And those are the two guys one time, they were in this town and they didn't accept Jesus. So they said, "Can we call down fire from heaven?" So he was a real fiery guy, in his younger days.
Oh yeah.
He had mellowed out by the time, he wrote this.
This makes sense.
It just strikes my sense of humor. Anyway, you have thoughts or comments or questions?
I was I see the one it's pretty amazing to see John the Baptist's character saying even just the words that he says, I must become less. It's he knows his role, and he talks about, we talk about even in the Bible later on, like we talk about our church, we talk about the roles in our church, we talk about the roles and whatever. And I feel like we should have the role model of Jesus, but then also we should have a role model of John the Baptist knowing our place, knowing where we are supposed to be, what God has done for us and hasn't planned for us. Because John the Baptist is sitting here, not very many people would put yourself in the story as the person that has to become less. He made himself, honestly, not really made himself rather, but God made him kind of a side character to the story, but he lived his life as that side character as much as he could. Never stepped out of line, never made himself a target or anything. He said, I'm not Jesus, but I could tell you that's him right there. I need to be out of the way.
Yeah. And in the context of John's narrative, it speaks directly to the integrity and the testimony of John as a witness.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, you have to ask, what kind of person will do what it takes to become an influential religious leader, not take money for it, make the primary point of his ministry, I'm setting you guys up for somebody else, and then who actively turns his ministry over to the other guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not normal.
And you have to ask yourself, what kind of person does that?
Well, I think the only kind of man I've seen do that is just John the Baptist, huh? So.
And then he goes on and he repeats some of the things that John the Apostle says at the very beginning of his narrative. This idea of Jesus coming from above. This idea of him being above all. And what John just finished relaying in the conversation with Nicodemus, he says, what verse is that? Verse 32?
Yeah.
He bears witness to what he has seen and heard, yet no one receives his testimony.
Yep. Yeah.
So John is making this part observation, part prediction. Is just like that. You can ram the miracles down somebody's throat.
Doesn't mean they're always going to listen.
No, it doesn't. But he says, if somebody does, whoever receives this testimony sets his seal to this, that God is true. So the person who acknowledges the validity of what we're talking about himself becomes a witness.
Yeah. That makes us witnesses.
Yeah.
There we go.
So now already John is comparing and contrasting certain people's reactions to Jesus. We see the reactions of some people who say, oh, wow, that's the Messiah.
Yeah.
You have some people say, it's clearly obvious that this guy's the Messiah. Look at what he's doing.
Yep.
And then we have other people who are not coming to that conclusion. And Jesus says the reason they don't is because they don't want to change.
Yeah.
That's the background to the very next thing John wants to talk about. And I think it's sometimes unfortunate that in our modern Bibles, we have these verse divisions and chapter divisions. And even in my favorite app, chapter 4 starts on a whole nother screen. But remember that in the original text, there was no chapter 4. This just blurs right on into what happens next. So let's keep reading.
All right. Now Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that he was gaining and baptizing more disciples than John, although in fact it was not Jesus who baptized, but his disciples. So he left Judea and went back once more to Galilee.
So pause here. So you see the transition?
Mhm.
There's no break. This is all one narrative.
One narrative.
And here you can see the cause, the connection, the cause and the effect. This scene with John at the river is the reason why Jesus leaves,
Yeah. Yep.
because it's being said that Jesus is baptizing more people than John, and John was already influential. And the Pharisees have already figured out, well, we don't like this guy. We don't want him getting all this attention. And so now there's persecution coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Jesus withdraws. Another thing I think is interesting to observe, it's not the primary point to our podcast or even John's narrative, it's just interesting. Jesus himself did not baptize, but only his disciples.
Yeah. And I think it's cool that he did that. Though. I mean, it was very clear. I feel like everything that Jesus did, obviously, he knew what he was doing. It was very calculated, but having his disciples doing it, showing that it doesn't have to be. Your baptism doesn't need to come from someone above.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. Someone who was the Son of God.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to observe that God works through people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jesus could have if he wanted to, but he's going to let the guys do it.
Yeah.
And that's not unlike the way he works today.
Not at all.
And then verse 4, he had to pass through Samaria. And this is an audio podcast. I can't wave my arms and show maps, but let's try to describe the geography for people who are not familiar.
Okay.
So if you look at a map of Palestine in that time,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at the region that's generally Israel, what you'll see is some areas. There's this blob in the north, and that's Galilee. And then somewhat to the right, you've got the Decapolis and Gentile country, and somewhere south of that, you've got another region that's called Idumea. This is where Herod was reigning.
Okay, yeah.
Now, if you look directly below Galilee, there's another region, and that's Samaria.
Mm.
There's a region somewhat to the west of Samaria that connects this northern region of Galilee with the southern region of Judea.
Mm.
And Galilee, this narrow region to the west, and this larger blob down in the south, that's Jewish country.
Okay, yeah.
Samaria is not Jewish territory.
Mm.
Historically, long time ago, Israel was a nation that had 12 tribes, but there was a civil war in Israel.
Okay.
And 10 tribes left the southern 2 tribes. The southern 2 tribes were Judah and Benjamin.
Mm.
Well, the northern 10 tribes, in order to maintain their autonomy, their rulers established a separate religion so that people wouldn't keep going back to Jerusalem to worship. And they got deported off their land first. This is Old Testament history. If you got time, you can read through and you'll see the God kept telling the people, don't follow other gods. Don't do what they do. Don't sacrifice your children to idols, and don't burn people and all kinds of stuff. And the northern 10 tribes did it anyway. God kept sending prophets. He kept saying, if you don't stop, I'm going to wipe you off the map. And they didn't stop. And so God wiped them off the map.
Yep.
And this is Bible history, but it correlates with archaeological history.
Mm.
The prophet said, I'm going to send in Assyria, the Assyrians. And the people didn't listen. So then God sent in the Assyrians and they wiped people out. After the Assyrians deported and killed nearly all of the people of the northern 10 tribes, they tried to resettle that area with people from all over the place. And the people from all over the place brought their own religions. So there was some period of time where they kept getting eaten by lions, and somebody finally figured out, the problem here is that people don't know how to worship the God of this place.
Yeah.
So they sent a couple of Jews over to try to teach the pagans how to worship the God of Israel. But what they ended up doing was mixing their religion with the religion of the God of Israel. Not surprising, because that's probably what the priests were doing anyway.
Mm.
And then later, the southern 2 tribes, which collectively were called Judah, although Judah was just the dominant of the 2 tribes.
Yep.
The southern 2 tribes started doing what the northern 10 tribes had been doing, and God was sending prophets saying, stop, don't do this. If you keep this up, I'm going to wipe you off the map. And for you, it's going to be the Babylonians. And the people didn't listen.
Yeah.
So God sent the Babylonians. wiped them off the map and deported them off to Babylon.
Yeah.
Now, the prophet Jeremiah had been telling people, this, you're going to be in exile for 70 years, and after that, God's going to bring back a remnant.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so after 70 years, a few people were allowed to return to Judah. And over time, Judah, the name got kind of mutated into Judea.
Mm.
And the modern word Jew is a shortening of Judea and Judah.
Oh, okay.
That's where all that stuff comes from.
Interesting.
What then about the Samaritans? Well, Samaria, being resettled as it was by foreigners
Mhm.
and practicing as they did a mixed religion, to the Jews, especially the Jews of Judea, they were considered worse off than pagans because they were, a perversion.
Yeah.
Even the whole land was unclean.
Mm.
A properly observant Jew shouldn't even be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of that is context for you to appreciate the irony behind what John says.
Mm.
It says he had to go through Samaria.
Yeah.
He got
I think it's very interesting. I think it's really funny that even though it's funny, it's not really funny at the same time. God has to tell people, hey, don't burn your children, don't sacrifice your children to an idol. Maybe let's not kill each other for
do less of that.
let's do less of that. You're doing something wrong, and then they refuse to listen. But that's kind of the story of the human race. So but actually, we're over time, so I think
Really?
we'll wrap this one up.
Holy cow. Well, in that case, I really am Bill.
And I really am Trevor.
And this has been Bill and Trevor's Excellent Adventure.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
I can't believe